Grief is a heavy and vulnerable conversation to have. This platform is a safe place for all individuals to come share their life's journeys of surviving grief without judgment.
Hi, my name is Tiffany Ware, and I'd like to welcome you to the QT Surviving Grief podcast. I'm so excited today. I have a special guest on. I have worked with her company for several years. Me and my mom had partnership with them where we have worked with families designing obituary programs. And through that, and just developing relationships over time, due to this podcast, I have a special guest that was recommended to me to come and talk about this topic in particular. So I would like to introduce to some Miss Michelle Elson. Hi, Michelle.
Hi there. How are you?
I'm good. How about you?
Fine, thank you.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I just want to thank you once again for coming on, Michelle. I'm so excited. Michelle works for Heritage Funeral Home, and so I'm super excited to have you on today. So, Michelle, we're just going to start with a brief, just a question about who are you? Just let the people know who Miss Michelle is.
Okay. Well, I'm originally from the Western New York area, small city called Lockport, but I tell people I'm from the Buffalo area because more people are familiar with that. I am the mother of three, grandmother to three adorable grandchildren and four bonus grandchildren. And me and my husband have been married for over 30 years. And we transferred here when he transferred his work.
Okay.
And we've been here since 2017, live here in the Columbia area. Interviewed with Heritage Funeral Home when I got here and started 2 weeks later.
Wow, that is such a blessing. I love for people to share their background, Michelle, because I always I just want people to know who we're talking to and kind of your experience. So thank you
Right.
for that introduction. Really appreciate that.
As
Yeah. So, Michelle, one thing I do like to do, as this is a grief podcast, I like people to just share. Do you remember your first experience with grief or death?
I do actually, like it was yesterday, which most of us do.
Hmm.
Was in 1982. My uncle went missing, and then unfortunately, they found him, but he was a victim of murder.
Mm.
So I remember my mother coming to the school to pick me up. I just started high school. And she said, "Oh, they found your uncle." And I said, "Oh, great. Where was he?" Thinking he was just with friends. He was 32. And unfortunately, where they found him, it described the whole scene.
Mm.
So that was the first experience with death in my family, and grief, because that lasted quite a long time, being that he was the fun uncle, the uncle that brought you things you weren't supposed to have and took you places. He was that uncle to everybody, not just to me. So that had a large impact on our family for many, many years.
Yeah, it sounds like he definitely left a impression and a legacy. And what was his name?
His name was George. We called him
George.
Georgie. Yeah, yeah. But unfortunately, his life ended way too soon. And
Mm.
back then, it seemed like he was a lot older until we get older and realize 32, So I
Yeah.
don't, I couldn't imagine it.
Yeah, that's tough, Michelle. Of course, me and you've spoken, and I that's kind of what started this podcast for me. And just someone being taken so quickly and in that type of way, it's a lot for a family to process for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, so I appreciate you just being open enough to share that with our
Mhm.
audience. And I was thinking too, Michelle, of course, I'm sure you've had personal grief just along the way, with living, um, you know, everyone, we all have a time to exit this earth.
Mm.
But I was also thinking not only from a personal perspective, but also from a professional lens. Um, What have you learned about grief or about death over time?
Um, well, yes, like you said, we all go through grief and the loss. Loss isn't just the loss of an individual in our lives. It could be the loss of a job, the loss of a home,
Hmm.
income. It comes in many different forms. I do realize that no two are similar. The way you may grieve,
Hmm.
different than the way I may grieve. Um, Similar to snowflakes, no two are alike. You'll find the older you get, the more you start to understand that there is no book telling you how to get through it, being that everyone is, it's so personal to them. And despite what anyone tells you, you're doing the right thing. That I've heard way too many times somebody tell somebody else, well, you're just going to have to move on. You're just going to
Hmm.
have to get over it. It gets easier. It's not always like that for some people. With the passing of an individual, especially, it's more like the ending of an era. When I lost my first grandparent that I was very close to, it was the way I described it was the way my parents were when Elvis had passed. It was
Hmm.
like the world crumbled, even though they didn't have that personal connection to him. They felt that they knew him enough where it did bother them quite a bit. And that's kind of how it was with my grandfather. Um, and like I said, from working in the field, this kind of work, many people think that I can handle it and I do it every day. Well, when you're doing it for a family member, it's a
Hmm.
lot different. It's a whole different ball game.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, Michelle, because that is something we hear often, like you're not over it yet, or, people expecting you to move on so quickly. And so just hearing that from you is so beneficial and just confirms, even for me in my situation, like it takes time, like you
Oh
said,
yeah.
for
Yes,
sure. Yeah.
definitely.
Thank you for sharing that. So in talking about your career, what was the journey or what got you into the mortuary science career field?
When I was in high school, when you become a senior, they expect you to know exactly what you want to do with your life and what career path you're going to take.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, a lot of people selected careers where they would become rich. They thought they'd become rich. Well, my idea of becoming rich was being able to help somebody. So my choice was I wanted to be a counselor, whether it be a high school counselor, whether it be a counselor working with people that just needed help. No matter what the field led me in, that's where it started. And then from there, I went into the business of monuments, gravestones. And
Okay.
with that, I ended up designing gravestones, selling gravestones, actually doing work on the gravestones because my brother was also in that field. And what he basically taught me everything that he knew. And I've been doing that for quite some time, but then that led me into working for the Catholic Diocese of Buffalo in their cemetery division. And that just put me a little bit closer. Each step I took me a little bit closer to actually the field of dealing with death all the time. So when I went to work for them, in addition to working for them during the week, I also continued the monument business on weekends. I felt the monument business would give me an opportunity to help a family with the final purchase that they would have to make for their loved one.
Hmm.
So in a sense, I got that gratification of being able to help somebody, not so much a counselor, but being able to help them get through what they were going through and design this one last gift that they had to give. Became friends with a lot of funeral directors, a lot of cemetery personnel. spoke to a lot of them, attended a lot of masses at church, attended a lot of funerals, and it just all sparked an interest for me. And that's where it all led me to where I am today. And I'm very blessed to be able to be doing what I'm doing as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that's amazing how it just the pathway was just laid for you and this is where you are today. So how many years have you been in the industry?
This past May marked my 30th year.
Wow, 30
I know.
years.
I I
Wow.
know, right? Seems
Yeah.
like it hasn't been that long, but
Hmm.
then when you sit back and realize where I started and when I started and where I am today, it's like, yeah, that's a long time, with raising a family through my while I was still working and having my career. We had the three children
Hmm.
and then it turned into a couple grandchildren and it just time flies. It really does.
Yeah, yeah, it does. Um, I think that's just amazing, and it shows me that it's definitely purpose, in the work that you do and you're dedicated to it. And you
Definitely.
have that passion for it. So that's awesome. So in what capacity do you serve at Heritage Funeral Home now? What's your role?
Primary, I'm what they call a family service counselor. My main job is whenever there has been a loss and a family comes in to sit down with a director, then I partner with that director to give the family an additional person that they have if they needed contact, if the director wasn't available and they needed something, that's where I come in. I'm there to serve the families with the director to make sure everything goes as smoothly as possible for the family. I also am licensed in the state of Tennessee now, where I can write prearranged funeral policies with families. That's something
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't do when I was in New York, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad I took that additional role to do because it is very fulfilling being able to sit down with people when they haven't experienced a loss and help them get peace of mind knowing that their affairs are in order whenever that day may come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. That was one of the things while we're talking about this, Michelle. You mentioned pre-planning. What does that process look like if a family comes in and wants to do that?
Yeah. Well, the two primary differences, cremation or traditional. Traditional is the one most people are familiar with. Some people don't even want to discuss cremation.
Hmm.
But the family comes in, once they tell me which route that they are thinking, traditional or cremation, then I direct them to the steps that pertain to their choice. With cremation, we offer three different types of cremation services, where traditional, you have two types. And they go into selecting even their merchandise. I give them a pre planning organizer where they can put down their music selections, they could put down their clothing, they could put down their pallbearers, they can get as detailed as they want to. And everything is in that planner. So I always advise them this is for your personal keeping. You just let somebody in your family know where this is at in the event that you pass suddenly. As long as they know where this is at, all the questions will be taken care of.
Yeah, I think that is it probably relieves a lot off of that family as well. When you get to, a point like that and you already have some of that business taken care of and
Oh,
you
definitely.
know that you're getting, I mean, you be gone, but you know that things are going to be handled in a certain way. And so I bet
Definitely.
that gives a lot of peace of mind.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. When
yeah.
you sit down with a family that has no idea that mom or dad or grandma had pre-planned, they just come to you and they say, "You know what? Mom's always said she took care of everything here. We don't know what she did or what she didn't do." And then we go and we pull that file with their name on it and we'll say, "Well, actually the only thing that we have to ask of you is what day you want the service because your mother or grandmother, whoever it may be, they've already selected their pallbearers, they've already selected their music, they've already selected the casket, the vault, whatever pertains to their policy, but they've already selected everything. Then the tears aren't tears of her passing or their passing. It's tears of, I can't believe that she even did that or he
Mm-hmm.
even did that. And it's that one last gift that they are giving back to their loved ones, even
Yep.
after their passing.
That
Big, big
is,
difference.
yeah, that is so true. It's such a responsible,
Mhm.
thing to do. And, you don't want to think about, passing, who wants to really think about that? However, I can see where that is so beneficial. I had that kind of occur in my family where things were just already laid out and everybody
Yeah.
was like, what? We're
Yeah.
running around trying to, do this or that or pick flowers. And it's like, no, everything's already literally written out. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a reliever. I think for sure for the ones who are in charge of it. So speaking of just Heritage Funeral Home in general and the cremation services, what is the difference between your burial services versus your cremation services? I heard you say it was 2 burial services and 3 cremations. So what's the
Right.
difference with some of that?
With the traditional, you have the option of the full visitation period, the service period, going to the cemetery, the burial, graveside committal, the full traditional package.
Okay.
That is what everybody is more familiar with.
Mhm.
Then you
Mhm.
have what is called an immediate burial. The
Okay.
immediate burial is similar to the traditional. The only thing is the family has selected not to have a visitation or not to have a service. Rather, they would like to go directly to graveside, have a small graveside service, and their individual buried immediately. That's the two differences with our traditional. Then, when it comes to cremation, we have what is just a simple cremation, similar to what it sounds like. We pick up your
Mhm.
loved one, we bring them into our care, we take care of all the paperwork, all the required signatures and permits that are needed. We perform the cremation, and once that's complete, we return your ashes to your loved ones. Then
Gotcha.
then the second option is what we call a memorial service. With a memorial service, it's like a traditional service. You have your visitation, you have your service, you have your music, your video slideshow, all of that. The only difference is the body is not present. The urn is present because it's taken place after the cremation has taken place. Then the third option is what we call a traditional cremation funeral, and that is the body is present. The body is prepared, the body is casketed. You, just like a regular traditional visitation, your services, your video slideshow, your speakers, everything that you wanted. The only difference is at the end of that, rather than leaving to go to the cemetery for burial, the
Mhm.
individual is rolled out of the chapel and stays with us at the funeral home for the cremation process to take place. Then, after that's taken place, then they're returned to their loved ones.
Gotcha. Thank you for explaining all that, Michelle.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes people, they may not know the options or,
Right.
they're just, so tore up. You like, you just, you don't even know where to start, I guess. And,
Yeah.
so I think it's important that people just know that like you said, I'm more familiar with the traditional service, and then I've been to a lot of funerals out at Heritage, but just knowing the breakdown of it is very beneficial. So I think that'll
Mm,
help our audience a lot, just to know what options are out there
definitely.
for sure. Well, let me ask you this, Michelle. Do you guys offer any type of grief support or grief counseling to families?
We do. If families, they have a couple different options. They could make an appointment, come in and talk to us directly, and we would help advise them on what might help them as far as grief counseling. We also have 8 different websites that have counseling online as well as in person, and we list those on our website. If you were to look on there, we have the names and the addresses and all the information for those different sites. The reason that we have so many is some of them may specialize in the loss of a child, some may specialize in the loss of an elderly person or the loss of a spouse. So there's different ones because we felt if we gave more options that would personalize it to an individual rather than having one general grief support group, then that would target more people instead of just a solo one.
Mhm.
We used to sponsor a grief support group for victims of overdose. And with that, that was due to the when fentanyl became a big problem in the country. We helped a lot of families, and then some of those families got together and started, it's called Light from the Darkness, and they are strictly for victims of overdose, to try to raise the awareness of
Mhm.
overdose. It's kind of like death. Nobody wants to talk about it.
Yeah.
Drug abuse or overdose, that's the same thing. Nobody wants to talk about it. They don't want people to know about it. They try to keep it hush hush if it's somebody in their family. Well, we have to, being that I helped them for a while, we have to try to raise the awareness to it instead of sweeping it under the rug and being ashamed of it, because it is
Mhm.
something that needs help, that needs additional people to have information, maybe so they could pick up on signs of it from friends or loved ones or acquaintances and be able to help them with it and keep them from coming to see us, unfortunately, the end result.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad y'all do that. Like you said, y'all. I guess y'all used to do it, but that's good. It's kind of like primary prevention, I guess you would say.
Right,
When you think about, just trying to get ahead of some of these trending topics, unfortunately, but that's what's happening out there. So I
right,
think that's applicable that y'all are, have gotten that awareness out, to try to get that support before they have to come visit you for another reason. So
right.
that's great, great. Um, so I want to shift gears a little bit. Michelle, of course, we know about Heritage Funeral Home. We've talked a lot about the cremation services, the traditional burial services. And so I wanted to ask you this, shifting to the Maury Memorial Garden, which is much more than a cemetery. I actually did some research, and I did not realize that you guys are Middle Tennessee's only hybrid cemetery. And I didn't even realize there was a chapel and a mausoleum. I I got a lot of good information when I did some research. So I want you to tell us a little bit about your mausoleum there on the property.
Right. We are adjacent to Heritage Funeral Home, and that is also something that I do. I try to take care of the cemetery as well as their monument sales there as well. We have a mausoleum, which is a multi-level mausoleum that has interior chapel spaces for cremation as well as traditional. We have exterior for cremation and traditional as well. We offer what we call tandem spaces, which is where two caskets can go into a single crypt. That is something that a lot of loved ones like, husband and wives like.
Mm-hmm.
That way they're both together, even in their final resting place. We also have side by side singles. We have cremation options, where those are referred to as niches, where once cremation's taken place, you can take that urn and give that a final rest in place, whether it's inside or outside of our mausoleum. Inside of our mausoleum, we also have glass front niches, where if a family chooses a decorative urn and would like to put some personal effects, such as maybe a photo of family or maybe a if they were in the military, maybe a piece of their military personal items. Those glass front niches allow that to be viewed by the public.
Wow.
It's also climate controlled, which means you can come during the winter months when it's cold. You could be inside where it's warm. You can have air conditioned inside when it's warm outside. So that is a benefit to the families. When you select whether it's a niche or a crypt space, everything is kind of put into one price to make it easier on families. For memorialization purposes, we have bronze niche plates or crypt plates that have all the information on it. This allows the mausoleum's appearance to be uniformed by everybody having that, yet you can still put some personalization to it by selecting a specific emblem that you might like on there, or a vase that you might want attached there so your family can leave flowers for special occasions. So with the mausoleum, that allows all of that to be taken advantage of, as well as in the future, we
Mm-hmm.
can put an addition onto the backside of the mausoleum, which will add more crypts and niches to the community for their final resting places.
Gotcha, gotcha. I didn't realize it was so many options even with that. The so much personalization that can take place. Within a mausoleum. That's good. That's good information to know. Um, I was thinking about this, Michelle. I've often thought about, maybe, placing your loved one in a mausoleum versus the traditional burial.
Mhm.
I remember when I was a teenager, well, I was actually a young child. It was a lady that passed away at my church. And I believe her parents were from up north. And so I think they put her into a mausoleum because the thing was if they ever moved, then they could
Mhm.
potentially move her with, if they went back home to where they were from. Can you
Right.
talk a little bit about the differences in the traditional versus or the advantages and disadvantages of both, or just what are your thoughts about those
Right.
two options?
Okay. Within our cemetery or memorial park, memorial gardens, within that we have 11 different gardens. And when it comes to traditional burial, um, you select which garden you would like, you select which grave location you would like. Then, when it comes to traditional burial, we require a vault or
Mhm.
whether it's a grave liner or a sealed vault, we require that. Being that we are a perpetual care cemetery, which basically means that you don't ever have to worry about maintenance and upkeep of anything because X amount of each sale goes into a perpetual care account that
Mhm.
maintains everything that would be needed in the cemetery. So when you choose ground burial, you have your vault, you have the opening of the grave, you have the monument that you would purchase for that grave, plus the grave itself. And then when you choose mausoleum, you don't need a vault. The
Mhm.
mausoleum itself is considered your vault. You don't need a monument because you have the bronze plate that goes on the face of the crypt or the niche. So those are a couple things that are a little different between the two.
Mhm.
A lot of people feel, wow, that's beautiful mausoleum. I could never afford to go in there. That's just kind of a misconception
Okay.
because when you compare apples to apples and traditional ground burial, you need a vault. Then you're going to need a monument. The
Mhm.
opening and closing is more. You don't know, depending on which garden you select, what the price is, the availability of being here next to a loved one or not. If it's something you don't really mind one over the other. So with the mausoleum, you don't have as many expenses if you compared what put them side by side, I guess,
Mhm.
is what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say. You More people would be surprised if they let us put it out there to them side by side rather than just assuming they could never afford to go in a mausoleum. There are a lot of, with that being said, there are payment plans as well. You can, just like pre-planning a funeral, you can pre-plan where you would like to be for your final resting place, whether it be a mausoleum, whether it be ground burial, a columbarium even is an option. We have columbariums, which are freestanding units for niches, for cremation only, for niches that people can select too. And it's in-house financing for that. And those can be on a payment plan just like a pre-planned funeral can be.
Yeah, that's good. That's good to know. Once again, just options, options.
Mhm.
I think this is gonna be so good. So thank you for breaking that down a little bit. And I did notice you guys have a specific garden of significance called the Garden of Freedom for veterans. Can you speak a little bit about that and some of the options there?
Yes. Garden of Freedom, like you said, is our veterans garden. That garden was designated only for veterans. We are not a national veterans garden where you have a couple in Nashville that are national. We just Mr. Baker, not me,
Mhm.
he had designated that so that families of loved ones that were veterans wouldn't have to travel as far to see their loved ones. And with that being said, he also decided that any veteran that has their DD 214, which is their discharge paper, they could select a grave free of charge. He wouldn't charge
Amazing.
anything for that grave. They can even select that while they are living. They can come over,
Mm,
speak with us, select their location, know that that's in place. One thing that some of the national cemeteries for veterans do not do is they don't allow family members. We
right.
do allow family members to be buried next to their loved ones that were veterans. A lot of spouses take advantage of that and are buried side by side or together. Then we also have, if they had a child or two children, they could also select to be buried in that garden next to their parents or next to their loved one that was a veteran. And the cost there is minimal as well. We
Mm,
discount for veterans. We definitely love our veterans. We try to support them in the community any way we can. We are there on Veterans Day. We are there on Memorial Day, and like to be involved in anything that they have going. Or if we can't be involved, we definitely like to back them and support them in what they do. And I have met a lot of great people through the years of me working for them and being present at those events.
yeah,
So
I think it's awesome that you guys really care about keeping that family unit together or that like that's almost unheard of when you think of, like you said, when you think about our veterans, they go off to be buried in some of those cemeteries and it's just them. So I love the fact that you guys have that option for if the family wants to be buried alongside. That's just amazing. I read that and I thought, wow, that is good, keeping the family together in that way, in that final
yeah.
resting place.
And
Um,
it is very touching if you've ever seen a military burial.
mhm,
We set that up for the families we serve as well. We have the military honors. We have the playing of taps. We have the folding of the flag and presented to the family. We set all that up for them. They don't have to worry about any of that. We get all that set into place for them. And one other thing that the government does for a veteran with a DD 214 is they
mhm.
supply them with a marker. So they can
Oh,
have their marker is free of charge and their grave is free of charge. So those are a couple things that veterans do qualify for. And there are other benefits, and it just depends on the veteran, their what branch they may have served or what their highest rank may have been, if they're retired from the military, or if they simply served in there for X amount of years. There are different benefits available that we offer to families, information on, and contact information for them to get a hold of people to get those other benefits that they're well entitled to. And we try to help with that as well.
That it sounds like y'all are such a connector of
Mhm.
just transmitting that information and working with families and having the know-how and what's out there for them. And so thank you for exploring that the whole veterans thing. I think it's amazing work y'all do with that Garden of Freedom. Um, one of the other things I was very interested to hear more about, Michelle, I heard about this concept, I'm going to say probably 3 or 4 years ago. And I read that you guys have biodegradable living urn and that it some type of way develops into a tree. And I've heard about this concept, not in that way of how y'all have it written on the website, but I just wanted to know more about that because I have heard several people say, I want to be turned into a tree or I want to be turned into this or that. And so I'm excited for you to talk about what that process is and what that service is y'all offer.
Yeah, that's one of our gardens, and we call that the memory forest.
Okay.
The reason and what it consists of is if somebody had selected cremation for their final disposition,
Okay.
the living urn is a patented urn that allows you to have your cremains in the bottom of this biodegradable urn.
Mm-hmm.
Then there is a additive that they have researched and found that allows a tree to be planted be on top of the cremains, and with the additive in between the roots of the tree and the cremains themselves, it doesn't burn out the roots of the tree from the different the different calcium and magnesium that's in with your cremains. So once they select a space in within this garden, then they select their tree of their choice.
Mm-hmm.
Then we do a little committal service right there with the family where we bury this right there with them. Sometimes families ask if they could help put the dirt back in or put it around it or help with the tree, which we encourage. Absolutely. If
Yeah.
you want to help with that, that's meaningful, and
Mm-hmm.
we would never, not let them. So then once that is done, then what we do is order a bronze plaque, a small bronze plaque that has their name and their dates on it and maybe a few words of endearment. And that is placed on a piece of granite and that is set at the base of the tree. That way, when this tree starts, you know who that family tree belongs to. So
Wow.
instead of having a ground burial within one of our other gardens and
Mm-hmm.
placing a monument to acknowledge the individual, we're kind of replacing monuments with trees. And with that being said, it's great for the environment.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah.
continues, it's that personal family's family tree. And when another individual within that family, if
Mm-hmm.
they select cremation as well, depending on how big of a space this family has selected,
Mm-hmm.
their next loved ones that choose that can be placed into a biodegradable urn, not another tree, but buried around the base of the tree that they already have started. And what this does is adds family members to that family tree. And so that's
Yeah.
their own family tree.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I've
Mhm.
I've heard about this for a long time and it's been recently. And so I yeah, that's an interesting concept. But like you said, it's so it seems so natural.
Right.
and you can actually go and just see how it grows, out of the living iron. And it's also good to know if you have family members that, choose that same option, you guys can still, be in that same vicinity. Yeah, I thank you for explaining that.
Yeah.
Because that is something that like I said, I heard about, and I'm like, I don't know if I don't know if I'm hearing that right. So I'm glad you explained it to me. But Michelle, we are wrapping up. We're getting kind of towards the end. You gave us so much information. I will definitely go back and take some notes from this conversation. But I want to talk a little bit about living on purpose. When we first started this conversation, you talked about how you got into this line of work. And in this line of work, I know you have to have a major level of compassion, of course. Um, for the families who are coming in. So I wanted to ask you, what does self-compassion mean to you? And what does that look like to you?
Um, Sometimes it's easier said than done. I have
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
convince myself sometimes that
hmm
I deserve the same compassion, the same time and consideration myself as I
hmm
like to give to others. I have to, we don't always look at it that way. It's like in my line of work, I do it because I like helping people.
Yeah.
And I don't often I don't often feel that I allow myself what I show to others. So with that being said, I've been more mindful of
Uh-huh.
trying to allow myself patience and understanding and time, and everything isn't going to be perfect and things are
That's
going to be
right.
different, and to understand that.
hmm
And that's something that is an ongoing that I just try to be more mindful of with every day.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. I think like you said, I can give the compassion to others, but I struggle as well a little bit in that when it comes to self. And so that brings me to a question, Michelle, of thinking through, on a grief journey, it's very easy to kind of forget about self, honestly, because you're so wrapped up in the emotions and, everything that comes along with a loss. What does self-care mean to you? Is that something you practice daily self-care in any way?
I would say more recently
Okay.
than I used to. When I started becoming mindful of everything that I need for myself as well as I give to others, I also tried to get on a little bit of a schedule, I guess you would say. In the mornings, I allow myself about half an hour when I first wake up to check my emails, check and see if I had any texts during the night, just to
Mhm.
know what my day is going to look like. That
Mhm.
helps me be prepared and know what I'm going into before I get out there into it. But then in the evening, it's the same thing. Come home from work, I usually have my what I call downtime after
Okay.
dinner. Me and my husband just kind of watch a movie together or talk and just kind of distress from the day if we had anything going. And then at nighttime, well, by speaking with him and having our downtime together, that helps me to relax and get a better night's sleep. And by doing that, I have less stress in the evenings. I have less
Mhm.
stress for the mornings. And that's what I've been targeting is that downtime in the evening and that prepare time in the morning.
Yeah. I like that. I like that I hear a lot about the morning, but I like the way you laid that out about the evening because it really is time to really decompress from the day and just, time to allow to, be rejuvenated and all of that. So thank you for sharing that as well. I may have to add that evening routine to my to my
Yeah.
routine, Michelle. For sure. After that long work day, just bring it down a little bit.
Yes.
And so I want to ask you this. So Quentin was really into music. I know we talked a little bit about him when we before this interview. So I wanted to ask you, I ask everybody this, if you could have a song be your life story, what would that song be and why?
I would think that my selection would be based upon me and how I like to be the one to take care of people and serve people. So it
Mhm.
would be the title is called My Wish, and it's from a group named Rascal Flats.
Okay.
And what it's about is basically that my wish to anybody in my life, whether I know you or not, is for you to have what you need in life, for you to not want anything in life because you have it,
Mhm.
for your dreams to be fulfilled, for you not to want for something that is right there.
Mhm.
It tells me not to forget where I came from
Mhm.
and where I'm heading. And I think that wraps it up as far as reflection of me, because that's what I wish for everybody. That's why I'm in this line of work, have been for so long, because I wish well for people, and I believe that I get a lot of that in return. So that song would probably wrap me up in a nutshell.
All right, I like that. I'm gonna have to go check that out on YouTube. It
Yeah.
sounds very powerful.
Yeah, I
Um,
think so.
yeah, just you explaining it to me. So I'm gonna have to check that out. I'll definitely have to do that. Well, Michelle, we have come to the end. I want to thank you for coming on once again. Just another partnership within Heritage. I value you guys for sure. Like I said, we've
Oh,
worked with you for so many years. So
yes,
to have this opportunity, I just appreciate it. But let everybody know how they can contact you and any information that you want to share about Heritage and anything you guys have coming up.
definitely. Well, you can get a hold of me at Heritage. You can call Heritage. I'm the only Michelle there, so they'll know who you're talking about. But if even if you wanted to come in to sit down to discuss something, I want to make it known that we are not a high pressure sit down. I'm going to sit down and talk to you like I invited you to my home and we're sitting here talking. I'm not going to sell you anything. I feel you can make more informed decisions if you have answers to your questions. Let
Mhm.
me be the one to give you the answers, give you tools to work with. And then the next step would be you to contact me and tell me, I'd love to come in and get this taken care of so my daughter doesn't have to, or so my kids don't have to. So anything that I can do to help anybody, any amount of information, I'll be honest, whether it's the littlest thing or you just want to have a sit down and chat. I'd be glad to sit down with you, give you anything, answer any questions you might have. Like I said, I assist with everything that I can assist with at the funeral home. We are one family there. We're not a bunch of people that work together. We are honestly had I knew that these people were here, I would have had my husband transfer years ago. They are the best group of people, and I'm not saying that just because I work there.
Yeah.
They treat everybody like family. The way that they
Mhm.
would treat their family is the way we want to treat you and your family members. When if you gave us the opportunity to serve you, we'd be more than happy to do so. So you can reach me right there at Heritage Funeral Home. If you were to call and just ask for me, I can give you additional information. I can email you information, whatever works for you and your schedule. I make myself available for.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you again, Michelle. All
You're
the
very
information,
welcome.
we'll link everything in the description so people can reach out to you. And I
Great.
always end every episode. One thing Quinn used to say is all is well. So I end every episode with all is well. Thank you guys for joining us today. And we will be back in 2 weeks. We'll be wrapping up season 2 of the podcast. And so I want to thank y'all for joining us today. Thanks again, Michelle.
Thank you for having me, dear.
Yes, have a good evening, guys. Bye. We hope that today's episode has encouraged you and helped to identify strategies to navigate your grief and begin the process of moving forward in life. Grief Tribe, Healing Vibes. What were some key takeaways from today's episode? Drop a comment below and remember to like, follow, and subscribe.